produce a hustler tractor, which is a cannibalized car. It's just a car that has been cannibalized into a tractor to release the oxen from the farm to go and do other assignments. Because it is only in Africa where commercialization of agriculture is through an oxen. So this tractor that we shall present to you as an image, you will see it is a tractor that will do 10 functions. And we are happy, Your Excellency, you are talking about how do we run away from fossil fuel. This tractor will be a solution to that because it's going to use biofuel, which the farmer can farm for energy in the tractor. We have millions of scraps. And if this is going to be a donation, as a father of this sector, you will say, take these vehicles, give me tractors, and the counties can enjoy tractors, and they can produce more. And of course, the many functions that this tractor will do, we shall produce. At the end of the day, Your Excellency, shall be presenting to you a few other projects, which are presidential projects that are incomplete. And yet, there is a very huge demand for some commodities from this country to international market because of those projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We are going to connect our Jua Kali sector to our Tibet institutions because in Tibet, we have a lot of equipment. We spend almost 25-30 billion shillings to equip our Tibets. And we are now saying there must be a working formula between the Jua Kali and our Tibets so that the Jua Kali can leverage on the huge resources and equipment that we have in our Jua Kali to professionalize their work. But if you look at our manifesto, we have said that we are going to work with the Jua Kali, link them up to our Tibet institutions, and create a common user facility where we have the most modern of equipments to be shared by different people in the Jua Kali sector so that we can elevate the quality and the specifications of the products that they produce. So you are spot on, and I want to confirm to you that is a plan we intend to implement. And it's going to cover the textile sector, the leather sector, the wood sector, the metal sector. All those sectors will be covered in our common user facility that we are going to equip, either in every county to begin with, then we will move to the sub-county, and then we will move to the Jua Kali sheds, which can be shared by different Jua Kali players because it's expensive for one person to buy. But once we put a common user facility under the management of the Jua Kali, they can share in the common user facility for all the equipment that they need to be able to elevate the quality of. We not only unlocked matters to do with travel, we also unlocked and eliminated barriers. Number one, we've had a 10-year ban on our meat products accessing the South African market. We have committed ourselves, and yesterday in the evening we got a brief from the ministers concerned, but by December this year, the ban will be lifted so that our products can access the South African market. We cannot sell our tea to South Africa. We have a challenge selling our pineapples. We have a challenge selling our avocados, as was mentioned by this young man. The issue was that we are operating on different phytosanitary requirements. We have said we are going to harmonize our phytosanitary regulations so that by January we can be able to access the South African market as they access our market. That way we can begin to bring down the difference in the trade levels between our two countries. As was said, they are selling to our country $650 million US. We are selling only $40 million to the South African market. And yet, the primary or the premium products that we'll be selling to South Africa have barriers. One of them is tea, and I persuaded the President of South Africa that by January, February next year, we should be able to export our tea to South Africa. And I do that for all the other countries, including our neighbors, and I want to persuade all of us here, whether you are in fintech, whether you are in agro-processing, whether you are in the Jua Kali sector, we must focus our market beyond Kenya. And that is why we should leverage on the East African community, and more importantly, we should leverage on the infrastructure given to us by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Africa, ladies and gentlemen, is our market for our tea, for our coffee, for our milk, for our fintech, for all the products that we produce. We must raise our horizon to the 1.2 billion people in the African continent. And we must target the 2.7 trillion GDP and make some of it Kenyan GDP.
It's quite capital intensive to set a manufacturing plant here. And it's also a challenge for the hustlers to be able to access financing. I'm calling myself an hustler manufacturer because I got into manufacturing food production with no food technology, knowledge at all. I am a product of the Kenya Industrial Research Institute. First, some of the challenges that we have is malt licensing. We have to pay so many licenses to be able to set up, plus their fees. At least you need 400,000 to be able to set up a factory in Kenya. I don't know how many startups will be able to afford that. Some of these licenses can be grouped together and it can be made cheaper. Annually, for renewals, we need at least 200,000. That is quite expensive for a startup. Another thing, it's on the taxes. It's like getting a baby and expecting this baby to feed herself in less than a year. So we are requesting for moratoriums or a grace period to be able to get on our feet so that we can be able to pay taxes without default.
We must up our game and we must support people like Esther who venture into adding value to our products for local consumption and even for export. This is a subject we have discussed extensively, and that is the reason why I hired Moses Kuria. Moses Kuria, can you respond to Esther?
Esther, I want to tell you that first, using our Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute, we are now running up to 50 to 100 clients, SME clients whom we are incubating there. From our Kenya Industrial Estate, we have another 50. We are now going to roll out these incubations to every county. And that is the basis. That is the basis of our common user facilities. I have received already a lot of requests, and people are offering land. And I want to thank Governors, Your Excellency. Governor of Elegeo Marakwet has offered me land. Governor of Laikipia has offered me land. Governor of Nyeri, actually, where on Saturday I was giving out relief food in Kieni, we have agreed on 150 acres of land available from national government, where we'll put up our first pilot common user facility. So I want to tell Esther and all our SME manufacturers, at least you'll have a home. And let me also reiterate, Your Excellency, we don't have a problem of money at all. I've had a discussion with banks. I've had a discussion with the World Bank and other development partners. The problem is what you have alluded to and what President Gatti has alluded to, that the bottom is not organized. We've left our SMEs out there like mushrooms in the world. And what I'm going to do is to work with Esther and all the SME manufacturers, SME exporters, put them together and make them ready to receive money. Because money is one thing, and having an organized architecture that can be able to receive money is another thing.
For a very long time, SMEs have been relegated to some department in some corner. And by so doing, sometimes they get forgotten. I now have a minister who wakes up and sleeps SMEs and cooperatives. To do two things. to make sure that SMEs are organized, to make sure SMEs are made business ready, and to make sure that SMEs are made funding ready, so that we can catapult SMEs to the next level, where we create big corporations out of small SMEs.
What is it that we can be able to do to utilize the open space that we have in this country so that we can be able to leverage on carbon credit?
Precisely, that's why I attended a session in COP27, where we were discussing about how to grow, how to expand, and how to make carbon credit markets much more accessible, simpler, and carbon credit funding, not to fund intermediaries, but to find the actual people who do the real work on the ground. You may want to know that at the moment, 80% of all carbon credit financing end up with intermediaries, auditors, assessors, and the rest of them. The people who bear the brunt and who do the hard work of making sure that our environment is safe get the short end of the stick all the time. So in this particular arrangement, and that is why we were having this session, shortly, we are going to have a law that will govern matters to do with carbon credit, so that to make sure that it is transparent and it is accessible to the people who actually should benefit from that carbon credit regime. So the Ministry of Agriculture and all the other ministries that are related, including forestry, we're going to put it together so that we can deal with the challenge of climate change and unlock financing that can help us mitigate and provide for adaptation mechanisms for the climate change effects that we are suffering as a nation.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think we get to a close of that session, but we as the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we want to commit to you and to your government, Your Excellency, that we shall reorganize and we shall reorganize ourselves so that we can be able to partner with the Kenya Kwanza administration.
I agree with you 100% that the chamber can work with the government to organize the bottom. And what I have seen this morning is actually a testimony and a confirmation that indeed, with the chamber, we can leverage on your network to be able to organize the bottom of the pyramid, to get the many innovators, the many creators, the many entrepreneurs, the majority of the 4 million micro enterprises to get to a level where they can help us create jobs and they can help us create wealth. I have listened very carefully to Magdalene, to Trevor, who spoke earlier, to Eugene, who spoke earlier, and they present and they represent our future. The one asset that we have in Kenya, a very rare asset, is our human capital. We may not have gold, we may not have silver and all the other things, but we have the people of Kenya, and that is the asset that we have. And that is the asset that is going to turn around our nation. And I am happy that we are working together to sharpen, to model, and to shape the human capital that we have through training, through education, and I am very confident that going into the future, from all our learning institutions, training institutions, we should be able to build the human capital that is going to make the difference in our country, that is already it is making. We need to fund, and I am very happy that we are having a conversation and even listening to my great exporter here, the constraint that has been around our human capital and especially our micro and medium enterprises has been the concept of financing, affordable financing. I have listened to the banks who spoke to us here, great people from Equity to APSA to DDB here. I really want to persuade our financial institutions, yes, to be flexible in how they lend their finances, but also to consider the aspect of cost. What is the cost of my financing? I would have been very happy to hear Equity Bank say, we're going to lend to SMEs on a single-digit interest rate. And I really want to challenge our financial institutions with tremendous respect that it is possible and it is time that we inspired our micro and small enterprises by ensuring they have access to affordable credit. The government of Kenya is going to work with you as we fashion the Hustler Fund. I want to promise the country that the Hustler Fund is going to be on a single-digit interest rate, and progressively for the smaller enterprises, we will begin with just a simple fee without interest, because we want to fire the bottom of the pyramid. That is where the engine of our economy is.